Tony Messenger joins us every Tuesday and Thursday, and normally we talk about his columns. Today is a little bit different in that if you're just joining us, about a half hour ago, Steve Stenger, St. Louis County Executive, joined us on the show and wanted to come on the show and make some allegations about Tony Messenger. Tony, you and I have not talked about this. We did give you a heads up that he was going to be on the show, which we do as a courtesy to all of our guests if we know someone's going to be talked about on the show. I don't know if you heard it. I don't know if you want to respond. Did you hear it? Do you want me to tell you what he said? Good morning. Welcome to the show.
First of all, happy birthday.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
39 again?
I am 51 and counting. It's not going the other way.
Well, welcome. We are the same age. I'm just a little bit older than you.
All right.
So I did not listen. I was on the phone, always working. So why don't you tell me what the county executive had to say about me, and I'd be glad to respond.
Okay, so it was in reference to one was your column on the medical marijuana, which he says he doesn't understand how the process works. He has very little knowledge. He doesn't really have an opinion on medical marijuana one way or the other, and he's so far out of his realm of purview that he doesn't even think about it. That was the one. But more importantly, he was talking about an incident that happened in July of 2017 with Mark Mavani and Chris Nicastro, where he alleges that Mark McVaney told Chris Nicastro that you were giving him political and campaign advice against the ethics of the newspaper. We have a clip of what he said. Listen to this.
He is giving campaign advice to Mark Mantovani is a clear violation to me of journalistic ethics. I think it undercuts the validity of anything that he's writing about me. I think it shows and demonstrates he has an agenda and that he can't be fair and objective. And I think that by working behind the scenes to advise my political opponent and keeping that activity secret from his readers while he's writing attack pieces about me, I think that Tony and the Post-Dispatch have violated the public's trust, and I think that's a trust that they should have with the community. I think that this demonstrates that they don't have much regard for it. I have a few questions about these violations. Is Mantovani paying Tony for his campaign work? Is this the kind of donation that should be reported as an in-kind? And does the Post-Dispatch even know that Tony has been working with my opponent and violating the paper's ethics policy by acting as a campaign worker?
Let's stop it there. Tony, your response.
It's ridiculous. I, as a reporter, do with Mark Mantovani the same I have done with Steve Stenger. Steve Stenger and I have met off the record for drinks in which we have discussed things going on in the political world, in which we share off the records our thoughts about such things. Now, Steve and I haven't done that in a while because the last time we were scheduled to meet, he canceled. But I've had the same sorts of discussions with Mark Mantovani. I've had the same sorts of discussions with politicians, Democrats, Republicans, across the spectrum. It's called being a reporter and doing my job. I develop relationships with people in the political world, and they ask me my thoughts on topics, and I give them my thoughts, and they share their thoughts. When we're having an off-the-record conversation and sharing our thoughts about the world and developing a relationship, that's just called being a good reporter. There's nothing untoward that I have ever done in any relationship that I've had with any politician. This morning, while you were having a conversation with him and I wasn't able to listen, I was on the phone with another politician having a conversation about a variety of stories. I had one on the phone with a different politician yesterday having a conversation about a variety of stories. And this is the nature of back and forth that reporters have with the people that they cover. It's simply good reporting, and Steve knows this because Steve has had those same kinds of discussions with me and with other reporters. It's what politicians do. It's what reporters do. He is grasping at straws and I welcome any criticism that he wants to display in this sort of capacity.
So he says that by giving this Mark Mantovani a suggestion to call Chris Nicastro for his, I guess it was considered campaign advice in this July 2017 meeting. Do you have any idea what he's referring to, or how it could be taken out of context, or what he's talking about?
Sure. I had coffee with Chris Nicastro, the former Commissioner of Education for the state of Missouri, and she was talking about her interest in various political things. And I said, I've met Mark Mantovani, a guy who's going to run for county commissioner. I think you two would like to talk to each other. They share some interests. We were talking about topics that in which I know that they have similar views. I put them together. I've done that with a variety of people. It's one of the things that a reporter does to expand his network of sources and everything else. He makes connections. He networks with people. He says, hey, I met this person. They might be interested in you. I have done that with a variety of politicians, people that I have covered over the years, and it has worked to my advantage because people then bring me stories. Another example that's sort of similar in terms of just networking, your producer, Tom, also has a radio show. The other day when I was on your show talking about one of my veterans columns, Tom said, hey, could you come be on my show at the Westplex later the next day? And I said, sure. It's networking. It's doing what people in business do. There's nothing inappropriate about saying, hey, Mark Mantovani, you might want to meet Chris Nicastro, or Chris Nicastro, you might want to meet Mark Mantovani. That's just what we in business, not even just journalism, do. But I don't work for Mark Mantovani or Chris Nicastro or Steve Stenger or anybody. I simply do my job as a reporter and will continue to do my job as a reporter, expanding my network of sources and information as well as I can.
Tony, also in this conversation I had with Steve Stenger about a half hour ago on the show, I asked him if you reached out to him on this article about medical marijuana that you wrote. And he said that he gave you a short statement, and I'm paraphrasing his words here. He said that he every time he tries to have a conversation with you, you take his words and his comments out of context and are misconstrued, and so therefore he doesn't feel like he'll get a fair shake from you, so he gave you a short statement this time around.
Well, first of all, he's refused an interview with me for months, and if that's the way he wants to play, that's his business. I asked for an interview. I was declined an interview. He gave me a short statement. I ran that short statement in its entirety, word for word. Be glad to share the email with anybody who wants to see it that I got from his spokesman, who, by the way, is Paul Hampel, who's a former Post-Dispatch reporter and a colleague and a friend of mine. I suppose that means I'm on the Stenger campaign payroll now, according to his logic. But I always ask Mr. Stenger for an interview. In the last several months, he has consistently declined because he would rather than wait until I write something and then go on radio and talk about it behind my back. That's fine. If that's the way he wants to do business, so be it. I'm going to keep doing my job.
Tony Messenger, anything else you want to add to this conversation and you want people to know?
Yeah, just one little thing, because I happened to hear Steve talking about not my column the other day, but the reporting of my colleague Jacob Barker, who wrote the story the day before mine about the bogus marketing contract that John Rollo got through the Port Authority. And Mr. Stenger went on another radio station and he said, look, I don't control the Port Authority. And then in the same conversation, he said, but I happened to meet with Mr. Rollo and Montel Williams a couple of times during the process. And I just wonder, it's like, how many times are we going to hear this story? I have no control over something. Oh, but by the way, I was directly involved. And then later in that same day, he went to an event and gave a big check to an organization on behalf of the St. Louis Port Authority. Mr. Stenger wants to have it both ways. I will stand by my reporting. I trust that readers can look at that reporting and connect those dots. And if they have any criticism about the accuracy of that reporting or about my biases, I look forward to talking to any of them personally.
Tony Messenger, thanks for your time. Have a good day.